The phone buzzed at midnight, and Tom's message hit like ice. Emma, Sarah and I are done pretending. You're out. Pack your things from the apartment by morning. No scenes. No explanation, no goodbye. Just a command that shattered 4 years of trust. I stood in the dim Atlanta kitchen, heart pounding, then exhaled slowly. This wasn't the end. It was my beginning. I always saw us as unbreakable. Tom, my fiancé of 4 years, and Sarah, his childhood friend who had become mine too. We built everything together in our small Atlanta ad agency. As the manager, I handled the money side, covering costs for our pitches, funding trips to client meetings in New York, paying off debts when their freelance gigs fell through. Tom would pull me close after each wire transfer, murmuring that I was the steady one holding our dreams afloat. I believed it, poured in everything to make our startup vision real. But the chill started months ago, subtle at first. Tom dodged questions about our shared accounts, claiming late nights at the office. Sarah pulled back from group calls, citing deadlines that never materialized. I brushed it off as stress from tight budgets, but doubts crept in. Had I overextended? Was my reliability turning into a burden? The tension built quietly, like pressure under the surface, making every interaction feel off balance. One evening, I left work early to surprise them with takeout from our favorite spot. The apartment door was ajar, voices filtering out. I paused in the hallway, hearing my name. Sarah's tone carried certainty as she outlined how they would launch the app without me, crediting my $20,000 seed money as a casual loan they had no intention of repaying. Tom agreed, noting the lease was in his name alone, so eviction would be straightforward. They laughed about keeping it clean, no messy confrontations. The words landed heavy, a dull ache spreading through my chest. Pain hit first, not sharp, but deep like a foundation cracking. Confusion followed. All those late nights brainstorming, my savings drained for their ideas, and this was the payoff. Anger simmered beneath, hot and unfamiliar, but I clamped it down. No bursting in, no accusations. I backed away silently, slipped into my car, and drove aimlessly through the humid Atlanta streets. That moment fractured the peace I had clung to, exposing the lies woven into our bond. Sleep evaded me that night. I lay awake, replaying conversations, each one tainted now. The $52,000 I had funneled in over years, prototype development, marketing tests, even rent when cash flow dried up, flashed in my mind. They had framed it as teamwork, but it was extraction. Doubt gnawed deeper. How many times had Tom promised equity shares, only to delay? Sarah's casual mentions of borrowing now rang false. The betrayal stung, blurring trust into suspicion. By morning, resolve hardened amid the hurt. I couldn't confront them yet. Emotion would cloud the facts. Instead, I logged into our shared drive from my laptop, heart racing as files loaded. Subtle discrepancies appeared. Deleted drafts of partnership agreements that once included me, rerouted payments to their personal accounts. Anger sharpened into focus. This wasn't just personal, it was calculated financial maneuvering. The confusion eased slightly, replaced by a cold clarity. They thought me naive, the reliable provider. But reliability could cut both ways. Tension mounted through the day. At the agency, Tom texted about a team meeting that evening, oblivious. Sarah emailed a vague update on the app, attaching files I knew had alterations. I responded neutrally, buying time while compiling screenshots. Pain lingered, a constant throb, but anger fueled action. No more ignoring the signs, the evasive replies, the private lunches I had dismissed. Each discovery amplified the rift, pushing me from passive supporter to someone ready to reclaim control. As dusk fell, I met a colleague for coffee, testing the waters indirectly. She confirmed what I suspected. Unequal contributions often led to legal claims in creative partnerships. Her words validated the brewing storm inside me. Back home alone, I organized the evidence into folders, bank statements, emails, receipts. The process soothed the bewilderment, channeling rage into strategy. They had shattered the illusion of unity. Now, I would rebuild on truth. The path ahead felt precarious, but for the first time, it was mine to navigate. The next call from Tom came late, his voice casual over the line, suggesting I sign off on minor expenses. I agreed vaguely, masking the shift. Internally, the pressure built. Every word from them now carried weight, a potential thread to pull. Pain from the revelation ebbed into determination. Confusion gave way to questions I would answer myself. Anger, once scattering my thoughts, now directed them precisely. The peace they stole wasn't gone. It was transforming, piece by piece, into power. Days blurred into a routine of quiet vigilance. Work demanded smiles, but beneath, conflict escalated. Sarah proposed a solo pitch to a big client, bypassing our usual trio. Tom backed her without hesitation. I nodded along, but noted the exclusion. Each slight deepened the wound, yet accelerated my preparations. No direct clashes yet. The build-up was internal, a storm gathering force. By week's end, the initial shock had forged something unyielding. I was no longer the one holding everything together for them. I was preparing to let it unravel on my terms. The morning after Tom's message, I skipped the apartment and headed straight to a quiet coffee shop near the agency. Laptop open. I accessed our shared cloud storage, fingers steady despite the knot in my stomach. Files unfolded layer by layer, each one peeling back the facade. A hidden subfolder caught my eye, labeled Private Pitch. Locked behind a password I guessed from Tom's birthday. Inside waited the truth, raw and unfiltered. Emails spanned months, Tom and Sarah coordinating every move. One chain detailed how they rerouted my $15,000 app development payment to their joint account, framing it as a precautionary transfer in notes to me. Sarah suggested dissolving our trio quietly, claiming my management role made things complicated. Tom replied that the lease transfer to his name alone would secure their future, adding they could spin my contributions as voluntary support, no legal ties. The words blurred for a second, pain surging like a fresh cut, deep, unrelenting. Confusion crashed in next. How had I missed the shifts? Those team updates Sarah sent, now reread, omitted key financials, steering me away from details. Tom's casual assurances about equity, always postponed for better timing. Anger followed, sharp and rising, but I breathed through it, scrolling further. Bank logs showed withdrawals I authorized for marketing, funneled straight to their personal expenses, flights, dinners, even a down payment on equipment listed under Sarah's business. Over $30,000 diverted, all while they pitched me as the indispensable partner. The shock settled heavy, not explosive but immobilizing. Years of shared goals, late-night strategy sessions, my savings depleted for what I thought was ours, reduced to their private ledger. No outburst tempted me. Instead, a silent resolve took root. I downloaded everything, time-stamped each file, and closed the laptop. They had betrayed not just trust but the foundation I built. This revelation demanded response, not reaction. Back at work that afternoon, tension coiled tighter. A group email arrived from Sarah, proposing a client demo without mentioning my input on budgets. Tom followed up in person, stopping by my desk to confirm attendance, his tone light as if nothing fractured. I nodded, masking the storm, but internally dissected every glance. The pain throbbed, confusion lingered in unanswered whys, yet anger honed my focus. I forwarded the suspicious files to a secure personal drive, adding metadata for court viability. Evening brought more layers. Accessing old voicemails, I played back Tom's vague promises about repayment schedules, now juxtaposed against their plans to ghost me post-launch. Sarah's texts to him, deleted from my view but recoverable through backups, revealed her push to accelerate the split, citing my overinvolvement as a risk. Each piece amplified the betrayal's scope: financial, emotional, professional. Resolve deepened. This wasn't isolated deceit, but a coordinated erasure of my role. I reached out to Lisa, my lawyer friend, via a discreet call during lunch. Outlining the basics without names, I described the fund diversions and partnership omissions. She confirmed potential fraud claims, advising immediate documentation and a formal consultation. Her guidance cut through the bewilderment, transforming raw hurt into actionable steps. Anger cooled into determination. I would expose the mechanics, not the mess. Night fell, and solitude amplified the internal churn. Replaying the drive incident, pain revisited, but with clarity. Their laughter behind the door wasn't malice for show. It was confidence in my compliance. Confusion ebbed as patterns emerged, delayed reports, exclusive meetings I excused as oversight. The full revelation hit. They viewed me as a means, not a member. Silent resolve solidified. No pleas or confrontations. I compiled a timeline, cross-referencing dates with transactions, each entry fueling the shift from victim to architect of reckoning. By midnight, the folder swelled, screenshots, exports, notes on discrepancies. Tension peaked in the quiet hours, every notification from them a potential trap. Tom's check-in text arrived, inquiring about my quiet day. I replied briefly, feigning fatigue, but saved it as evidence. Pain from the core wound persisted, a dull ache, yet anger channeled it productively. Confusion resolved into questions I now pursued relentlessly. The betrayal's depth revealed their vulnerability. Paper trails don't lie. The next day escalated the pressure. At the agency, Sarah cornered me in the break area, indirectly probing commitment to the demo. Her words laced with assumption I'd step back. Tom lingered nearby, endorsing her lead. I agreed outwardly but noted the exclusion, adding it to my log. Internally, the shock evolved, pain sharpening awareness, confusion yielding to strategy, anger propelling precision. Revelation was an endpoint. It ignited the path to reclaiming what they stole. Afternoon yielded another blow. Reviewing contract drafts, I found clauses slipped in post-signature, limiting my equity to advisory status. Their intent crystallized. Use my funds, credit my labor, then sever ties. Resolve hardened further. This demanded legal pursuit, not emotional release. I scheduled the full meeting with Lisa for the following week, preparing summaries. The build-up intensified, each discovery widening the rift, pushing me deeper into control. As the week closed, the internal transformation accelerated. Pain became fuel, confusion a catalyst for scrutiny, anger a blade for cutting illusions. The revelation's weight lifted slightly, replaced by empowered clarity. They thought the message ended it. Instead, it unveiled their game. Now, armed with truth, I prepared to rewrite the rules. With the files secured, I wasted no time on confrontation. Justice required method, not fury. The next morning, I drove to Lisa's office across town, the weight of evidence in my bag pressing against the seat. She reviewed the downloads methodically, her questions pulling out timelines I had only begun to map. This setup screamed breach of fiduciary duty in our informal partnership, she explained, with strong grounds for recovery under Georgia business law. My contributions weren't gifts. They formed the core investment, traceable and enforceable. Pain from the betrayal lingered, a quiet undercurrent, but her words sharpened my anger into targeted intent. Not destruction, but restitution. I left with a plan outline. Compile a full financial audit, draft a demand letter, and prepare for mediation before court. Back home, I started the audit, pulling bank records from the past 4 years. Each entry revealed patterns. $8,000 for server hosting rerouted without notice, $12,000 in travel expenses billed to me but claimed as their solo costs. Confusion from the revelation faded as numbers aligned, replaced by cold clarity. They had exploited my trust systematically. Now, I would dismantle it with precision. Tension built in the process, every discrepancy a reminder of their calculations, fueling my resolve to act solely for equity. Afternoon brought calls to a forensic accountant recommended by Lisa. He agreed to verify the diversions for a flat fee, estimating completion in 10 days. I authorized it immediately, the decision marking my shift from passive financier to active claimant. Anger simmered, not as blind rage, but as motivation to document every angle. Contract notes, meeting logs, even witness statements from agency colleagues who saw my hands-on role. The planning phase intensified internal pressure. Each step closed off retreat, pushing me deeper into control. No more waiting for their next move. I dictated the pace. Evening hours focused on the demand letter. Lisa sent a template, and I filled it with facts. Specific transactions, dates of misleading assurances, the hidden folder's contents. The language stayed neutral, demanding 50% recovery of invested funds plus interest, citing partnership principles. Indirectly, it referenced their intent to exclude me, without emotional barbs. Drafting it eased the bewilderment, transforming hurt into structured argument. I emailed it to Lisa for review, then backed up everything to an external drive. The act of organization brought a measure of power, anger cooling into strategic patience. The following week accelerated. The accountant delivered preliminary findings, clear evidence of misappropriation, with trails leading to their personal assets. Lisa refined the letter, adding legal citations from similar Atlanta cases where courts awarded shares in creative ventures. I signed off, the pen stroke finalizing commitment. Tension peaked during a routine agency check-in. Tom suggested scaling back my involvement in the demo, indirectly implying I focus on admin. I agreed outwardly, but logged it as further proof of exclusion. Internally, the conflict escalated. Pain a distant echo, resolve dominating as planning solidified my transformation. I expanded the scope, contacting 2 former clients who had interacted with all 3 of us. Their accounts confirmed my integral contributions to pitches, countering any narrative of minimal role. One even recalled Tom downplaying my input post-meeting. These affidavits would bolster the case, turning observation into ammunition. Anger directed this outreach, ensuring no loose ends. The process heightened pressure, each interaction a test of composure, but clarity prevailed. I planned not for revenge, but balance. Midweek, Lisa scheduled mediation for 2 weeks out, buying time to subpoena records if needed. I prepared scenarios, their denial, counteroffers, stonewalling. For each, responses were ready. Escalate to filing, or accept partial but documented settlement. The foresight reduced confusion's remnants, channeling energy into contingencies. Tension mounted as Tom grew evasive, canceling a shared lunch with vague excuses. I didn't press. Instead, I photographed his latest expense approval on my desk, another thread in the web. By Friday, the plan stood robust. Audit complete, letter dispatched via certified mail. Witnesses lined up. Lisa confirmed viability for full recovery, potentially including app equity. The internal shift deepened, from stunned discoverer to calculated enforcer. Pain had receded, anger honed to a point, clarity absolute. They assumed silence meant surrender. It masked preparation. Each detail observed, every move anticipated, built the framework for fairness. The build-up strained, but empowered. Victim no longer, I held the reins. The weekend allowed refinement. Reviewing the letter's receipt confirmation, I noted their lack of response, tactics Lisa predicted to wear me down. I countered by organizing a personal ledger projecting outcomes. $26,000 minimum, plus reputational leverage in agency circles. Tension crested in quiet moments, replaying their betrayal, but planning converted it to momentum. No direct talks. Indirect pressure through legal channels would force exposure. Resolve anchored me. The path from hurt to agency nearly complete. As the mediation date approached, final touches emerged. I consulted a business mediator for strategy tips, learning how to highlight discrepancies without accusation. The advice integrated seamlessly, strengthening the approach. Anger now served precision, not outburst. The plan's architecture reflected my evolution, methodical, unyielding. They had sown deception. I harvested truth. Clarity enveloped the effort, tension a forge for strength. Ready, I awaited the mirror they could not escape. Mediation day arrived under a steady Atlanta rain, but inside the conference room, the air hung thick with anticipation. I entered first, placing my binder of documents on the table. Lisa at my side offering a brief nod. Tom and Sarah arrived minutes later with their attorney, a harried man who scanned the room quickly. The mediator, a neutral figure with years in business disputes, called the session to order, outlining ground rules for open but controlled exchange. Tension radiated immediately, my pulse steady, their postures rigid as initial statements began. Lisa opened by presenting the case outline, sliding copies of the financial audit across the table. The documents detailed every diversion. $15,000 in development funds shifted without consent. $12,000 in expenses claimed as solo by them. She highlighted email chains showing intent to exclude me, emphasizing breach of implied partnership duties under state law. Their attorney countered indirectly, suggesting contributions were informal loans, but the mediator pressed for specifics, noting the lack of repayment agreements. Pain from past months flickered briefly, but resolve kept me silent, letting facts build the pressure. Tom spoke next, his voice measured as he downplayed the transfers as mutual support in lean times. Sarah added that the app's success stemmed from their creative leads, implying my role stayed administrative. I leaned forward then, responding through Lisa to avoid direct clash. The evidence contradicted their narrative, receipts tied to joint pitches, witness logs confirming my strategic input. The mediator reviewed the hidden folder printouts, questioning their deletion attempts as potential obstruction. Anger stayed contained, manifesting as precise recall of dates, each one underscoring their calculations. As hours passed, the room grew warmer from the back and forth. Their side proposed a low settlement, $10,000 lump sum, no equity, framing it as goodwill to end matters quickly. Lisa rejected it outright, citing the accountant's valuation placing my stake at $26,000 minimum, plus interest accrued over years. I interjected once, noting indirectly through the mediator how their private plans undermined any goodwill claim. Tension escalated. Tom shifted in his seat. Sarah avoided eye contact as discrepancies mounted. The plan executed flawlessly, no shouts, just unrelenting exposure of their maneuvers. Break came mid-afternoon, allowing private huddles. Lisa and I reviewed responses, adjusting demands to include app co-ownership if funds fell short. Their attorney pulled them aside, voices low but urgent, likely confronting the audit's irrefutable trails. Upon return, concessions emerged, a revised offer of $20,000 and partial credit acknowledgement. But the mediator highlighted risks. Full litigation could reveal more, potentially triggering agency reviews or client withdrawals. My silence amplified the mirror effect. They saw their strategy reflected back, flawed and fragile. Proceedings resumed with deeper probes. The mediator facilitated joint review of bank logs, forcing admissions on rerouted payments. Sarah attempted to explain one as an error, but timestamps linked it to their exclusion emails. Tom pushed back indirectly, blaming partnership ambiguities, yet Lisa countered with precedents from Atlanta courts awarding full recovery in similar creative disputes. Pressure built relentlessly, each concession chipped at their position, consequences unfolding in real time. Resolve held firm. This wasn't vengeance, but equity enforced through truth. By late afternoon, cracks widened. Their attorney signaled willingness for $25,000 and a non-disparagement clause, but Lisa held for the full amount, leveraging the obstruction evidence. The mediator suggested a caucus. In separate rooms, I outlined final terms, no clause, full payment within 30 days, plus public correction of my role in agency records. They returned pale, agreeing to $26,000 in equity split, the mediator drafting terms on the spot. Signatures followed, the pen scratch marking closure. Tension peaked then released, satisfaction quiet but profound. Not triumph over them, but validation of my stand. Consequences rippled outward immediately. News of the mediation leaked through agency channels, colleagues whispering about the dispute's details. Clients pulled back from Tom and Sarah's solo pitches, citing trust issues after hearing of the financial twists. The app launch stalled. Without my documented contributions, investors hesitated, forcing them to delay by months. Tom attempted a follow-up call that evening, voice strained as he sought to explain away the outcome, but I let it go to voicemail, archiving it as final proof. Sarah's freelance inquiries dried up, her reputation tied to the exposed deceptions. Agency fallout accelerated the next week. A senior partner requested a meeting, reviewing the mediation agreement and reassigning leads to balance teams. Tom received a formal warning for unauthorized fund use, while Sarah faced audit on her projects. Their joint venture crumbled under scrutiny. Partners dissolved, forcing asset sales that barely covered debts. I fielded no direct apologies. Indirect attempts came via mutual contacts, laced with regret over misunderstandings. The plan's execution ensured they confronted their actions' weight, not through my force, but their own unraveling. Satisfaction emerged not from their losses, but the respect earned in handling it cleanly. Colleagues nodded in hallways, one even offering a new collaboration spot. Pain from betrayal had dulled to lessen, anger dissipated into growth. The mirror I held reflected their choices back, morally sound and unassailable. Tension from the buildup resolved into poise. They bore the fallout, I claimed the space. Respect for the process, and myself, lingered, a quiet victory in precision over chaos. As weeks turned, consequences solidified. Tom relocated pitches to smaller firms. Sarah pivoted to consulting with diminished networks. The agency thrived without their unchecked moves. My role elevated through proven reliability. No further contact sought. The agreement's terms enforced distance. The execution mirrored justice, subtle, inevitable. Viewer would sense fulfillment in the fairness, admiration for the restraint. Conflict crested, transformation complete. From sideline to sovereign. The check cleared 2 weeks after mediation. A straightforward transfer that closed the financial chapter without fanfare. I deposited it immediately, allocating half to a new savings account for my solo projects, and the rest toward a short-term lease on a modest apartment in Midtown Atlanta. No celebrations marked the moment. Instead, a quiet exhale signaled the end of constant vigilance. Lisa followed up with a final email confirming all terms met, including the agency record updates crediting my contributions. Their side complied silently, the equity split formalized through a simple filing. Pain from the initial betrayal had faded to a faint scar, replaced by steady internal calm. I blocked their numbers that same day, not out of spite but necessity, space to rebuild without echoes of the past. Tom attempted contact once via email, indirectly expressing regret over the fallout, and suggesting a talk to clear the air. I deleted it unread, archiving only the header for records. Sarah's mutual friend reached out weeks later, conveying her apologies through vague messages about lessons learned. No response came from me. Apologies wouldn't rewrite the trust they shattered. The silence I enforced created boundaries, allowing focus on forward momentum. Anger, once a driving force, dissolved into indifference, clarity now guiding daily choices. Agency life shifted subtly but positively. Colleagues approached with new collaboration ideas, their respect evident in shared leads on pitches where my financial oversight proved key. A promotion discussion arose naturally, tying to the mediation's validation of my role. No dramatic announcements, just organic recognition. I accepted a lead on a client project solo, structuring budgets with ironclad transparency to prevent old patterns. Tension from the dispute's shadow lifted gradually. Interactions felt unburdened, each success reinforcing self-reliance. The transformation settled deep. From reactive partner to independent operator, internal strength a quiet anchor. Personal routines rebuilt layer by layer. Mornings started with runs through Piedmont Park, the rhythm clearing residual confusion and building endurance. Evenings filled with online courses on advanced project management, skills honed for ventures fully mine. A new network formed through industry meetups, connections based on mutual goals rather than obligation. No longing for the old trio surfaced. Instead, freedom brought lightness, decisions swift without second-guessing. The moral crystallized in solitude. They undid themselves through choices, not my hand. Peace emerged not as absence of conflict, but presence of control. Months later, updates trickled in indirectly. Tom's pitches faltered at smaller firms, clients wary after the dispute's ripples reached broader circles. Sarah pivoted to freelance gigs, her portfolio scrutinized more closely post-exposure. The app, once their dream, relaunched under a new name with diluted funding. Equity disputes lingering in reviews. No schadenfreude stirred. Their consequences stood as natural outcomes of deception. Agency thrived. My contributions spotlighted in team reports, fostering opportunities one pursued on equal footing. Internal calm deepened, a buffer against what-ifs. Reflection came in quiet evenings, reviewing progress logs. The $26,000 fueled a prototype for my own app idea, one centered on transparent team finances. Irony not lost, but channeled productively. Friends noticed the change, commenting on newfound confidence without probing details. I shared sparingly, emphasizing growth over grudge. No search for closure from them, moving forward provided it. The catharsis lingered in small victories, securing a grant, landing a key client, each affirming resilience. Betrayal's weight lifted fully, leaving space for unencumbered ambition. By year's end, the chapter closed definitively. A new apartment lease signed, keys in hand, symbolized fresh starts. No shared obligations, just personal terms. Lisa's occasional check-ins confirmed no loose ends, the agreement airtight. Tom's final indirect plea via group chat invite went ignored, boundaries holding firm. Sarah's career updates in newsletters showed modest gains, but none intersected mine. Peace manifested as autonomy, decisions mine alone, untainted by past manipulations. The story's arc resolved. They faced self-inflicted fallout, I gained unshakable poise. Hope infused the aftermath. Colleagues' stories of similar navigations reinforced universality. Betrayals happen, but recovery builds stronger foundations. My narrative, shared selectively in networking talks, inspired quiet nods, turning pain into relatable wisdom. No victory parade needed. Internal fortitude sufficed. The viewer walks away sensing endurance's power. She endured, emerged free, boundaries her shield. Moral echoes simply. I didn't break you. Your actions did. Now unbound. Paths diverge toward brighter horizons.